gorgeous women, and killer sharks. It should be a winning combination all day long. But is it? Welcome to my review for 47 Meters Down. This was not a first time watch for me. I've owned this film on DVD for at least a couple of years, so this was my second watch, and I think the reason why I decided to come back to it this particular week, well, two reasons. Firstly, this film was directed by a guy called Johannes Roberts, if I pronounced that right. He did the recent Resident Evil reboot, so I think it's a good time to revisit some of his older stuff. Secondly, I noticed the other night that this film is currently showing on Netflix, and I couldn't resist glimpsing this film through the lens of Netflix, because everything they show these days tends to be really high definition, and I only own this film on DVD, and I've kind of got it in my head recently that DVD films are grainy and old these days. I mean, you've got 4K at the top of the tree, then Blu-ray, and DVD is like tier 3 quality now. I mean, a lot of this is psychological with me. I'm sure there are loads and loads of DVDs out there which still look really sharp. They were probably really ahead of their time when they were released on that format. But certainly I do find myself pulling less and less DVDs off my shelf these days, even though probably half of my collection is still DVD. So yeah, I watched the film on Netflix, even though I probably paid about £10 for my DVD version at some point. So the story for this sees a couple of women called Lisa and Kate. They're on some kind of girly holiday in Mexico, or Mexico, as the locals might say. Lisa is trying to get over the fact that her boyfriend just recently dumped her. So these girls meet a couple of new guys when they're out clubbing one night, and the guys invite the girls to go scuba diving in an enclosed cage out on the ocean, as long as they pay like $100 for the privilege. I think the idea is that they'll go in this cage beneath the water for about half an hour, take loads of pictures of sharks and of themselves, and what Lisa's hoping to do is to put these pictures on Facebook so that her ex might see them and then take her back, because he'll suddenly realise what an exciting gal she is, and oh, what a mistake it was to dump her in the first place. It's a bit ridiculous, actually. Lisa is played by the very gorgeous looking Mandy Moore. I must admit, I find it a little bit unbelievable that a guy would dump Mandy Moore because of the idea that she doesn't go on enough exciting excursions. I would find any bad shark CGI more believable than the idea that a guy would do that to Mandy Moore, but we'll just skip past that plot point. It's probably the weakest thing about this movie. So Lisa and Kate get into this cage. They go under the water, but of course, this being a horror movie, the cable holding the cage up snaps, and the cage plummets all the way down to the ocean floor. You guessed it, exactly 47 meters downwards, and these girls are suddenly in a life or death situation. They've got sharks circling them. They're also running out of air. They've only got 200 air. I don't know what the measurement is for air. Whatever it is, they've got 200 of it. It says so on their little readout thing. So yeah, they've got 200 air nodules, or 200 bubbles. I don't think it's lying, this thing. I think if they run out of that stuff, they are going to die. So we are all set up for a potentially nerve-shredding horror movie. And there is a lot of tension in this movie. From the minute that these two characters are placed down on the ocean bed, that's it. There's no let-up after that. We don't go and spend any time with any other characters. We don't go and check up on any other subplots. It's just us, the viewer, and these girls at the bottom of the sea, right through until the end of the movie, come rain or shine. The other night when I watched this, and I don't think I did this on first watch years ago, but I certainly did it the other night, I had to press pause just to take a little breather from everything that was going on. I had to go and make myself a coffee for a few minutes until I was ready to get myself back in the game, until I was ready to face the rest of it. I hardly ever do this with movies. Even in a great film like Jaws, you get a bit of downtime with Roy Schneider's character as he wanders around the island. The tension sort of stops for a bit, but not in 47 Meters Down. You are in the thick of it with these girls from the minute they touch down on the bottom of the ocean right through to the end of the movie, whether they're going to survive or not. The two parts, Lisa and Kate, are played very well by Mandy Moore, who I've already mentioned, and Claire Holt. I vaguely remember Mandy Moore when she used to be a singer many, many years ago. I can distinctly remember being a teenager and hearing a radio presenter introduce a single by Mandy Moore when she would have been like 15 or 16, unless I'm getting mixed up with Leanne Moore, but I don't think I am. So it was kind of weird suddenly realizing many, many years later that she was now an actress and taking on the lead role in a horror film. And she's very, very suitable for this, because I think the most important thing when casting a role in this film was the voice, because the actresses' faces are hidden behind scuba gear a lot of the time. And Mandy Moore, as you might expect, being an ex-singer, well, she's still a singer even today. She sort of balances acting and singing, but she's got a really sugary, gorgeous sort of voice, which works very well in this role. As for Claire Holt, as good an actress as she is, from what I can discern from watching this, I've not seen her in anything else, her voice is a little bit more indistinguishable from the crowd. I don't think I would recognise it if I heard it tomorrow, but these two girls are very good together. They pretty much have to carry this movie. This is, for the most part, a two-character film. The sharks are pretty good as well. They don't let the side down. It is the first question on everybody's lips when they read a shark film review or watch a shark film review, and I'm pleased to say there's nothing in this film which will take you out of the movie. The big advantage that this film has, of course, is that the air problem is there, and that it's a bigger issue for the characters than the sharks. I mean, the sharks come along reasonably regularly, but there's no major shark stunt in the script, so it was a lot harder for them to trip up over bad shark effects, I think. So I'm pleased to report that there's nothing in this film which is going to take you out of the movie on that score. One thing I like about this film as well is that Lisa and Kate don't stay in the same spot throughout the movie. This was one complaint I had about a similar film called Blackwater, but in this film, Lisa and Kate are constantly on the move, trying this and that. They do move to several different spots. I mean, they're not all over the ocean, of course they're not, but the main thing is, for me, they're not just hiding in the cage. You know, they do come out of the cage to try this and that, to try and get themselves out of their predicament. The sharks are in play on several occasions throughout this. My absolute favourite moment in the film, it lasts for about 5 minutes. It's a wonderful segment. So Lisa sees this distant light and she tries to get to it, but halfway there she realizes that she's now swimming over the edge of like an abyss, because she can no longer see the ocean floor. It just disappears in front of her. So potentially at this point she's swimming over like a chasm that could be miles and miles deep, and you really feel the weight of the moment. It must be really scary being in that situation. The ocean looks gorgeous in these scenes. It's just completely purple, I think, rather than blue. And you just feel the whole weight of the situation. Lisa gets lost for a few moments. She can't quite remember which direction she came from, which adds even more tension to it. The sharks are never more in play than in these scenes when there's all this space around Lisa. It's just a fantastic little moment in the film. I did want to talk a little bit about the men up on the ocean surface. There are 4 of them up there while all this is happening. You never really get to see them after a certain point in the film. It's easy to coast through watching this just assuming that the men are doing all that they can to help Lisa and Kate. But throughout my second watch, I did start to wonder, because a lot of strange things happen in this film that are just kind of odd in relation to the men up on the ocean surface. They are a little bit pathetic in terms of their attempts to rescue the 2 girls. So I do wonder, for instance, every time the girls get on the comms to speak to somebody up top, it's always Taylor who talks to them. Now, the weird thing about this is that the 2 guys who were previously romancing Lisa and Kate back on land, they're up on the boat, and yet they never go on the comms to speak to Lisa and Kate and offer some words of encouragement. It's always Taylor, possibly the one guy on the boat that Lisa and Kate know the least. Also, you can hear the boat driving away at one point, and you never really get any explanation as to why that would be. Also, at one point, one of the guys does swim down, but nowhere near to where Lisa and Kate are. I mean, it's only 50 metres technically, so how wrong does this guy get it? I mean, he ends up miles away from where their spot is. how difficult is it to just go down in a straight line? He's literally so far away that Lisa and Kate can only barely just make out his little spotlight thing, his flashlight, and he conveniently drops it on this little island which is in the middle of the abyss section of the ocean, which is a little bit of a coincidence. So presumably he's got into some trouble with the sharks and accidentally dropped it, but I kind of wonder whether he's just come down into the ocean to troll them, you know, ensure that he's gone a safe distance away from them, and then just decided to wave his flashlight around. It's not inconceivable that these guys have deliberately dropped the cage down into the ocean. Maybe they're all up top having bets with each other as to how the girls are going to die, or maybe they just want to get rid of them so they can go back to their hotel room and steal their stuff, or maybe it's just a case of some of the guys want to try and rescue the girls, but some of the guys just want to abandon them, so there's some fighting going on up top. I get the sense watching this film that there's a whole other story playing out above the ocean surface, and we never quite get to see it, but it really adds another fascinating dimension to what is already a really captivating film. Another clever thing about this film is the twist at the end. I won't reveal what that involves, but I was really relieved when that happened, because I just started to feel towards the end of this that things were starting to get a bit convenient for these characters, a bit too easy all of a sudden. So when the twist hits, I was like, oh yeah, that's excellent, that's really clever, I like that. And it's not like the twist comes out of left field. You do get a little bit of a signpost that that sort of thing might be possible earlier on in the story, so it's a good one, I liked it. In terms of negatives, I've racked my brain and I can't think of an awful lot. I would have liked to have seen one or two more subtle clues that the men up top are possibly a little bit more sinister than the girls think. Although, if that wasn't the director's intention for the movie, then he's not going to want to put that stuff in there. But I would have liked to have seen that. It's not really a proper negative, though, is it really? I also kind of wonder about the science to do with the bends in this film. Now, I'm not that knowledgeable about the bends. I'll take it on face value, the stuff that Taylor comes out with over the intercom thing. It did cross my mind, though, at several points, if these girls are going to have to go back up to the surface anyway in order to survive, why wait for the cage? Because whether they go back up in a cage or just swim back up, they're going to be at the same risk of the bends, pretty much. Although I suppose if they go up in the cage at least, they won't be in danger of being eaten by sharks. I guess I've sort of answered my own question there. This is probably not actually a negative either. Although if it had been me in that situation, I wouldn't have left it as long as the girls did in terms of the air that was left on their little readout thing. I mean, as soon as mine got down to 30, 40, that would have been it for me. I would have been trying to swim back up to the surface, albeit slowly. I mean, Lisa and Kate, they let their readometer things go down to 5, 10, and they're still scrabbling around on the ocean bed looking for solutions rather than just trying to swim their way out. But anyway, it's easy saying what you would do from the comfort of your own armchair, I suppose. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give to 47 metres down. One, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5, which actually seems a little bit low now that I've tried to find negatives for the film and completely and utterly failed. But you know what? I've mentioned Jaws a couple of times in this review, and for me personally, I think this is a better film than Jaws. For me, that is the case. It won't be for the vast majority of the world, but I get more out of this film than the famous Spielberg film, and I think this film is destined to become a minor ocean horror classic in years to come. I really do. This is a really top-notch experience to be had, so if you've not had that pleasure yet, get on with it. This is a really good movie. Right, I'll be back very soon with a review for the sequel to 47 Metres Down, I think. Yes, I will definitely do that. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.